This takes place over a long period of time, several months. I start out kind of lost. The photography is bad, pretty bad, directionless. By the end, I feel that I get my mojo back to some extent, but this is also sort of kind of starting to become a cyclical thing. There's an awful lot of learning the same lessons over and over again going on in my life and in my photography. Sadly, that is not an ideal kind of scenario I'm describing, but an accurate one, yes indeed. I didn't know it'd be these film shots here, these shots on 35mm film. I was just trying to finish up a roll so I could get it developed. Well, I develop it myself, that was the goal, but I had to finish shooting it first. Little did I know these would be my last film shots. Forever? Probably not. For a good long while, yeah, I think so. I think I'm done with film for the foreseeable future. But I didn't know that at the time. I was having fun this day, shooting the snow on film, but I was not getting anything of value, and I think I was, to the best of my recollection, I'm a few months on now, I think I was aware of the fact that I was getting absolutely nothing of value. Usually the fact that I'm shooting film will make it that much more fun and kind of inspire me that much more to try harder. But a fucking wagon wheel, either I wasn't trying hard or I was incompetent. I don't know what the fuck that was. Anyway, that was my last film shot. Now here we are with digital. So I'm in Arkansas now. I took a few shots here around my dad's new house that he's moving into. A house that comes complete with multiple serial killer type rooms accessible from the outside. I'm in Arkansas because my mom is dying. Photography's still completely directionless. I know that I want to shoot, but there's just no gas in the tank. Life is really clamping down on any sort of artistic drive. I mean, I have the drive, but what I don't have is the ability to execute. I took a few shots in Arkansas. Mostly I just slept in the hospital. And indeed, my mom did die. So I came home, and I didn't leave the house for about 2 months. The apartment, that is. So I hung out with the cat and the wife. Anxiety sort of becoming my reality. I wanted to go out and shoot, but it was beyond just a lack of ability to execute artistically. It was manifesting physically in the form of panic attacks. This day was my first day going out with a camera, and I use voice-activated commands on my GoPro, and I was unable to control it. I literally could not speak. This is very tough. I'm shooting infrared here. I don't quite suck that much at making post-processing color decisions. I suck, but less. It was around this point it struck me what a giant pain in the ass film is, and how we've kinda, as a species, already solved this problem. And so, what the fuck am I doing? And to a lesser degree, but still significant degree, digital raw files are also a giant pain in the ass. Every single photograph you take requires work after the fact. And goddamn, I mean, who has time for that? It's great if you've got the patience to do it or the money to pay someone. But my convoluted workflow has only increased in complexity lately because I've been using this plugin, Dehancer, which is great, but, you know, just adds yet a few more steps between me and a usable image. And I've got to get control of this situation. And the way in which I'm going to do that is dialing it all the way back to shooting JPEG straight out of camera. I'd also considered just switching to black and white outright for everything. That certainly speeds things up. And also I'm colorblind, so it's extra difficult. I have this assumption pretty much all the time that I've probably screwed the colors up and everyone can see it but me, and who needs that headache? But then of course it occurred to me that those need not be mutually exclusive. I can shoot black and white as a JPEG straight out of the camera. Similarly, I can do that with color as a JPEG straight out of the camera. And if I haven't tweaked the color, then I couldn't have possibly screwed it up. And yes, I'll be ending up with a final product that's less finely tuned overall, more rough around the edges, dare I say, raw, with things kind of begging to be endlessly tweaked. But I'm just going to ignore those things. I'm going to leave them untweaked and just be okay with whatever the camera gives me. Everything is so over-polished anyway, and the time in which we live. So this really feels like the right decision for a multitude of reasons, not just the whole laziness thing. But then I kind of realized / discovered that you can actually make your own tone curve and color grade on the computer, depending on your camera model, manufacturer. I think it's pretty common though with all manufacturers. But you load it on your camera and then you have kind of a customized look straight out of the box. And that appealed to me greatly. So I came to the Canon website. Didn't have what I needed for my version of the OS, but I chose an older version and there it was, which shouldn't be a problem. I mean, not that much changes in one version of an operating system. So the tools required are this EOS utility, the picture style editor, and then this Digital Photo Professional is kind of the Canon equivalent to Lightroom. It will require you enter your serial number to download it. So this is Canon centric right here. Here's me creating a color profile, but as I understand it, this sort of stuff exists for pretty much every camera manufacturer. Just a matter of going to the website and or doing research online. So I've made 3 picture profiles, Canon calls them, and I loaded them onto my camera. I think I started with 3 black and whites, if I remember correctly. Yes, 3 black and whites. I get the color next. For now I want to nail down black and white. Unfortunately, my camera only supports 3 slots. Not a problem, like once I get it figured out, but for now I'd like to be able to test more variations of the profile while I'm out shooting to compare them. But ultimately I'd like to just end up with 1 black and white and 1 color profile and be done with it, so I would only need 2. As it turned out, when I got out here, I don't know what the fuck was wrong with me. I did not shoot in JPEG and I did not use the color profiles. This is just me shooting RAWs and then processing them after the fact. I don't know what the hell happened. I was really annoyed with myself. Didn't execute on the plan. But I go back out again. Just give me a second to get through this. Anyway, it would be a good base of comparison, right? If the JPEG black and whites look significantly worse than what I'm getting today, well, I'll know I fucked up somewhere. It's a bad idea. So let's do this. It's JPEG time. So we've got 3 black and white color profiles going on here. The obvious decision to me was to go RAW plus JPEG rather than JPEG alone. 2 reasons for that. 1, if I get something amazing that I love, I want to have the highest quality possible version of it, a RAW file. I want it to exist. So there you go, that's JPEG straight out of camera. The clipping point being a little high on the blacks, I'm not opposed to that, but I felt like it was a little over the top there, and I want to dial it back. And that looks awful. So yeah, this requires explanation too. I was out shooting 3 black and white profiles, but there are some color shots in here. Reason for that is one of my black and white profiles was especially bad, not even close to what I was looking for. So rather than just leaving those, I opened the raw files and used them as a learning opportunity. It looks good. Again, I have a problem with the black levels there. So what I actually like that one. That works for me. See, that's going to be the challenge, is building the profiles to work well in every situation, because every situation's a little different. That's going to be the hardest part of developing these profiles. But I was building out a color profile here because even though I shot with the black and white profile, when you use that, what the fuck was it called? Digital Photo Professional. These same, quote, picture profiles, you can apply them in post to the raw files, the same ones you loaded on your camera. But my first crack at a color profile is awful, but the black and white ones are not awful. I feel like they're real close to something I'd be happy with. Of my 3 black and white profiles, I quite liked 2 of them, so that's not bad. First try. But I hope that was all clear. It made sense about the color shots. I hope I explained it well. It's just the black and white version that came out of the camera, the JPEG that came out of the camera, was bad, and so rather than just saying, okay, it's bad and moving on, I used those ones specifically to start working on a color profile. I've just now explained it like 3 times. For some reason, I feel like I'm not explaining it well. So this is the black and white profile I was shooting with that I liked most, transitioning into the tweaked version from what I learned looking back at these photos. And that ends up being almost the final version. I made one further tiny tweak. But today, it's the next day, I'm focusing on color. This one, interestingly enough, was just the standard Canon profile built into the camera. I just thought that would be a nice point of reference. Here's an interesting thing. Having shot in RAW for so long, see, like, I don't like how blue that last shot was. I've sort of forgotten the importance of white balance. White balance was okay in this one, but I never bother when I'm shooting RAW. There's no need, really. But a lot of my shots were coming out too cold, and simply staying on top of my white balance could have resolved that in advance. Also, the blues are a little saturated. So in this one, this is another example of me opening the RAW file. Everything you saw so far was a JPEG out of camera. This one's not. It was so sickening blue. I kind of opened it up, dialed it back, and used that as an image with which to tweak the next version of the color profile. This is the JPEG straight out of camera, and the sickening blue doesn't bother me quite as much on this one. Oh yeah, nor this one. That actually looks completely reasonable, and that was another JPEG straight out of camera. Again, it's hard to find the profile that will just work the way you hope it will in every scenario. So a little bit later in the day, after I had time to go home and do some tweaking and reloading the color profiles onto the camera, I arrived at something I like significantly more. It's more subtle in every way. It's still built on the same basis, but the sky in particular is dialed back, both in terms of saturation and the hue. I shifted a little bit to make it less neon, less assaulting to the eyes in your face. Also, the shadows are still clipping a little too early for my tastes, so I dialed that back ever so slightly. Yeah, I mean, honestly, that looks pretty good in terms of the color, not the photography. I think I could easily live with this, but I don't. I make one further tweak from what I saw here, but it's real close. And also, loving my black and white. I guess I didn't really feel the need to do any more tests, although this day, which was the very next day, I did. do a couple more black and white tests, but mostly color. This crazy vignette, by the way, is not software. That was, well, I was using a speed booster for a non-full frame camera, but I was using it on a full frame camera, so hence this black outline. Not outline, but this big black circular vignette. These are all, every one of these is JPEG straight out of camera. No tweaking, no cheating opening RAW files. So I've got my color profile, I've got my black and white profile, and I'm quite fond of both of them. I did have an alternate version of the color profile. Just, I thought the main version was the good one, but I just wanted to do an A/B comparison once or twice, which I do. But real happy with the black and white. And even if I compare the black and white that I made to the standard built-in monochrome setting that's in my camera, I think mine is superior for sure. And the color is actually more similar to the standard color profile in the camera. The difference between my color profile and Canon's is more subtle than the difference between my black and white and theirs. But there's a lot of secret sauce going on in there. I worked pretty hard on it, actually. I mean, the fact that I got so close to Canon colors in the end, I mean, shows, I guess, a variety of things. Maybe I'm not so ridiculously far off in my color perception, and also Canon colors are to my liking, straight out of the box. So, but I intend to use my profile, not the Canon profile. I am quite happy with the work I've done in building it out and testing and tweaking and testing some more and tweaking some more, and I feel like I've arrived at something cool. It is my intention to provide them for download in a link under the video. I don't know where that's going to be though. Dropbox, maybe. I don't know how well that will work out, sharing a Dropbox link publicly, but I'll give it a shot. And if not Dropbox, then we'll figure out something else. But you really ought to make your own. I encourage you to do so. That's just more rewarding and more custom, and that's the whole point. Or just use the ones I made. I don't give a fuck. If you like them, use them. I'm pretty excited about this, though. Like a lifetime of processing raw images. I feel like it's over. I can't imagine going back. I'm super pleased just shooting right into polished-ish JPEGs. Of course, there's always something you want to tweak, right? But maybe just don't. Save time to actually live your life instead of just tweaking the living fuck out of every photograph you take. But if you got the storage, maybe shoot RAWs as well. Then if you get something really special, you've got the RAW. You've got kind of a best of both worlds scenario happening.